Hello people, not often I get to do 2 videos in one sitting, but this time I get to do 2. This one I was going to write and post it in the Sanhedrin site in Facebook, but have opted to do a video recording instead. This recording is called My Vision. I've got to tell a little bit of my testimony. In 1967, I had my first experience with God. Up until that time, really had no contact with anything spiritual, any type of religious upbringing, nothing. And I would find out later in life that I am the firstborn son. Well, that was no giver. I understood that. I was the oldest in my family and 2 other half-brothers. What I didn't know at the time is on the 8th day after my birth, my mother and biological father, who were still together, even though my mom lied and called me a bastard son, I found out fact that no, she was married to the man. I was raised in his home. Another lie of my mother is that there was no God and she never believed in God. Yet I had proof of, again, documentation that showed not only her but my biological father were members of the Salvation Army Church and were both captains in that order. That's a rank. How she achieved that, I don't know. That was never explained to me. Whatever happened between her and my biological father, I do not know. But I do know shortly after my birth and my dedication, yes, I was dedicated too. You want a 3-strike, you're out type of setup scenario for this guy? That's it. I'm the oldest male son, circumcised in the 8th day, dedicated and sanctified by oil in a ceremonial service. Now, there are those who will argue that, well, it was Salvation Army Church. I don't care. God will honor His word no matter where it's done. My mother never paid any ransom. And on time, the alarm clock went off, and I started having my strange dreams about things that I did not know, and God began to educate me about the scriptures. Again, something I had no control over, and I was going absolutely nuts as a young boy because I didn't know what I was seeing, and I couldn't really talk to anybody. I had no pastors that could explain to me what I was seeing at the time, except one friend of mine in Toronto by the name Oscar, who is a Catholic, and saw the stress that I was under because of these dreams and because of situations in my family, gave me a set of rosaries and taught me how to pray the rosary. Now, initially in my testimony I say I was raised atheistic, and then one day I was doing one of my cookie cutter prayers with the rosary, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee, blah blah blah, and I go, ka-ching, glory be to the Father and Son and the Holy Ghost, ka-ching, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee, ka-ching. Every time I moved the bead, I would do this little noise, and that's the way I was. I never took the rosary very seriously, but it was the only thing that I knew of, and the only thing that Oscar ever taught me. It was the first foundations of religiosity that I had ever in my life. And I was praying in Lincoln, New Brunswick, this silly little prayer, and I had my very first experience where I heard a voice telling me, shut up. Initially, I thought it was my mother, and I went scurrying to the thing because if she knew what I was doing, I knew I was a dead kid. She'd beat me. But when I tiptoed upstairs, checked my 2 brothers' room, yeah, I was in the basement all alone. My 2 brothers got the rooms upstairs, and my stepfather and mother lived upstairs. But I was always shoved in the basement. Forgotten about. And everybody was snoring, sound asleep. So I went back in my room and thought, I must have heard something. Might have been neighbors or something they heard about. Picked up my rosary and started again, right where I left off, only to hear the word saying, shut up, a second time. This time I thought it was my stepfather, who would beat me, definitely. And if I thought any spanking I received from my mother was bad, my stepfather could be brutal. Very, very brutal. If she was still alive, Violet Brewer could testify to some of the brutality she saw done to this boy by his stepfather. And I was doing this prayer and it told me to shut up a second time, and it kept on going, and I couldn't figure out. Finally, I thought, either I was going crazy or there's somebody else in my room. So when it told me the fourth time to shut up, I looked through the entire basement to see if somebody broke into our house. I could find nobody there. I sat in my room just trembling, shaking. And I said, is there somebody, very oddly, just like I'm talking right now, is there somebody else in this room? And a voice was quick to answer, yes. And I couldn't see anybody. I went into my closet, and I had one of these little cupboard-type closets, too, and I opened it up, and looked under my bed, and I checked my whole room, and I could not see anybody. And I said, who are you? And I testify to this day that God introduced himself to you in the areas that you can only receive him. And I didn't know anything about God. He said, I am Yahweh, you all know God. I would have freaked out. I would not have been able to accept it. I didn't know the name. And he wasn't ready to reveal his name. He just simply said, I am he who you seek. I thought to myself, who am I seeking? From 12 to 14, I had moved to this level. Thank God, because a woman who was looking after the household and was a caregiver to us at the household, she was kind of a nanny slash housekeeper slash cleaner that Mom hired. So look, I could tell you don't want the boy. And by the time she got me, I had ran away from home once to try and get rid of it. Lived on the streets for over a week in spite of a description. The cops drove by me several times and never once checked me out. But in the meantime, this man had befriended me and taken me to his house and had fed me and allowed me to clean up a bit, and then allowed me to sleep in his bed, crawled in the middle of the night, and raped me. I was traumatized. Any abuse that I had received from my biological father or mother or anything else became minuscule. But the worst for this boy still wasn't over. When I got home, I took off and went home, and I was upset and I didn't know what to say, and I told my mom. But instead of freaking out on this pedophile, this moron, she freaked out on me, and I was the dirty little boy, and she ran a scalding hot tub of water and scrubbed me with a very hard bristle horse brush from the top of my head till I was raw to the tips of my feet, using a very heavy lye soap that was used for horses, and called me a dirty, dirty little boy. On top of that, she disclosed that Marcel was only a stepfather. He wasn't my real biological father, and that my real father had gone, and he wasn't there. I found out, she called me a bastard son, but I found out that actually she was married to him shortly after that. And she promised me that on her deathbed she'd tell me the whole truth and reveal all things with, again, another lie, but part of that wasn't necessarily my mom's fault, but more an ex-wife of mine who lied to her and told her that she didn't know where I was when I was visiting my children and I was in separation mode. The whole matter was, for me, it became a difficult situation, and I had to find something. And Grammy Brewer, Violet Brewer, took me, said, if you don't want this boy, I'll take him. And even though I wasn't her own, very spiritually and prophetically, she took a boy who wasn't hers. And that was the very first moment that I understood what the scripture was. I hadn't had a Bible and still didn't read it, but he said he became a father to the fatherless. And God had a calling for me. Because I was the firstborn male son, circumcised in 8 days and dedicated in oil. And if you don't ransom that boy, it says that he'll be called into the temple, and there he will serve out before his God the days of his life. Now, I didn't always get it right, and I didn't always accept it when I found out I was set up and that I didn't have much choices in my life. I rebelled. I really didn't want to go in. I wanted to be a free spirit. I wanted to go out and do drinks and stuff like this that the rest of the teens were getting to my age. But every time I tried to run away, I just got pulled in closer. And I got involved with the occult and started studying things about the occult just to find out what was right and what was wrong, to prove or disprove different events of what was happening. And for me, I had to find it. And one day, another event happened when I cast a spell on 2 girls, and one went sick and one did not. And when I went to go find out about the second girl, she looked at me and said, "Daniel, I forgive you." I run out of time because I only have 15-minute segments. This is part 1. Stay tuned. I'll be back with part 2. Shalom.